It stands to reason that if you're a good wrestler, you should be in with a shot at headlining WrestleMania. That's just how life should work. As we know, life isn't fair. The 1997 SummerSlam told us that, and most of the time it does come down to who likes you and luck if you're going to be standing tall at the end of the showcase of the Immortals. You can see why for many people, that would suck. It gets worse as well because on occasion these premier workers feel so hard done by, it completely ruins their relationship with the WWE and that's it. They're out the door never to be seen again. No, that sounds like they're dead. I just mean in terms of the big time, they walk off into the sunset. So who would fit into that category? I'm Simon from What Culture and this is the 10 best WWE wrestlers never to main event WrestleMania. Number 10, Mr. Perfect. Mr. Perfect got a well-raw deal in the WWE, and there's not a pun. Not only did he never main event Mania, but he never even held the WWE Championship. What kind of world do we live in? A bad one, that's what. This gets sadder because all of his opponents at the pay-per-view came against the likes of Lex Luger and Brutus Beefcake. And that's nothing against those guys, but at the same time, come on. He's having to work with, for goodness sake. Perfect was a masterful performer, however, which he proved time and time again throughout the late 90s, where he danced with the likes of Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. Imagine I literally meant dance too. Wouldn't that be weird? And sure, if you want the counter-argument, he was never a super draw that you probably need to be if you want to climb that WrestleMania mountain. If we're talking about in-ring ability, forget it. Mr. Perfect was everything he said he was. Number 9, Booker T. Had WCW survived a few years longer, it's highly likely that Booker T would have become a permanent fixture in the main event of Starrcade, yet he never managed to close out its WWE equivalent. The closest he got to headline a match at WrestleMania came in 2003 when he challenged Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship. You want to know how that ended? It was a joke and was nowhere near the main event, which is probably the best given the ending. A lot of people do say too the big reason for this is simply because he was WCW made and not a Vince McMahon creation, a story we've heard so many times in the past. If you don't come directly from the brain of the CEO, there's always a slight uphill battle to climb. It may seem hard to believe, but what other reason would there be for it? At one time Booker T was exceedingly popular and having good matches. He could have filled such a role no problem, I would have thought, and yet he never did. At least we got King Booker though. Love King Booker. Number 8, RVD. Given that RVD was popular, spent almost 10 years working for WWE and was good in the ring, there's a chance he could have gotten his shot in the main event of WrestleMania, but he never did. I mean, certain things may have served as obstacles, but who knows? And that's really where we have to lay our hat. We can point the finger of blame at Vince McMahon, but let's face it, when RVD was given the ball, he did drop it a little bit. The very second RVD entered the top scene in 2006 when he briefly held the WWE and ECW titles simultaneously, he wound up shooting himself in the foot by getting busted for drug possession. Whatever the explanation though, there's absolutely no denying that the guy's one of the industry's most innovative and naturally gifted in-ring performers. In a parallel universe, he's probably a 10-time world champion. In ours, he was just Rob Van Dam, whatever that means. Number 7, Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes is one of the best performers in the history of wrestling. In terms of WWE though, this is mostly in hindsight, because when competition between companies was running strong, he wasn't exactly treated that way under Vince McMahon. For the short period that the American Dream was on their books as an in-ring competitor in the late 80s, they decided to put him in a polka dot singlet to what many thought was a way of insulting the guy. Needless to say, he didn't get anywhere close to the main event at Mania under this guise, instead spending WrestleMania 6 competing in a mixed tag team match alongside Sapphire, going against Randy Savage and Queen Sherry. Had he joined the company at a different time, it's likely that he would have ended higher up the card. He is a legend after all. Number 6, Rey Mysterio. Thanks to the decision to put his WWE title match on third last at WrestleMania 22, Rey Mysterio holds the dubious distinction of being one of the only Royal Rumble winners not to headline the show of shows. This all ties into his World Championship push, which didn't really hit the highs it should have done through poor booking, which ultimately stole away from the story. He had the popularity to take that spot too, especially when you remember the likes of The Miz and The Big Show have. He is easily in that league if not higher. With that said, maybe if Mysterio had been treated that way, we'd all hate him anyway, much like John Cena or Roman Reigns. I mean, we all got mad when he took Daniel Bryan's spot at the Royal Rumble, which goes to show, you just never know. Number 5, Bruno Sammartino. Bruno Sammartino was a very successful wrestler in the pre-TV era. On top of that, in the 2,803 days that he held the WWE Championship between 1963 and 1971, no such thing as WrestleMania. His accomplishments, however, speak for themselves. Not only does he still to this day hold the record for the longest ever world title reign, he also helped carry the whole company through some difficult years. In terms of his chops in the ring, any judgments we as modern fans make must be thinking about what wrestling matches were 50 years ago. Weren't too many people doing 450 splashes, for example. Ask any serious historian of the business though, and they'll likely tell you that Sammartino was something of an innovator for his time, and that's why if WrestleMania had been around, he definitely would have found his way to the end of the show, probably more than once. Number 4, Ricky Steamboat. To modern fans, Ricky Steamboat is probably best understood as the Sami Zayn of his day. That is, an incredibly gifted worker destined to spend his career on the fringes of the main event, thanks to this perception of him lacking something. Like Perfect, the Dragon never got his chance to headline Mania or win a world title in the Fed. Instead, he spent much of his time on the company's books competing for the IC Championship, and as we know, he did that very well. He also made a huge impression on the world of wrestling for 30 years, and his match with Randy Savage at Mania 3 is often cited as an early example of what the business would become in the ring. Steamboat was so good that he even tore it up at WrestleMania 25 in 2009, sharing a brilliant back and forth with Chris Jericho at the ripe old age of 56. We are not worthy. Number 3, Eddie Guerrero. At one point it seemed Eddie Guerrero would never be appreciated in his time. Thankfully he did have that wonderful moment where he won the WWE title, but in terms of headlining WrestleMania he never made it, something that's made even sadder given he passed away in 2005 at the age of 38. Given that he was in the midst of a major heel turn supposedly set to culminate with another world title run, there's an outside chance he would have ended up closing the show eventually. We'll never know for sure, but what we can be certain of is that Guerrero was one of the company's most accomplished and revered technicians, and a performer who helped to inspire loads of wrestlers currently thrilling audiences today. And though he never went on last at Mania, he did partake in one of the event's greatest matches ever in the shape of his WWE Championship match clash with Kurt Angle in 2004. So he made his damn mark. Number 2, CM Punk. Despite being one of the most popular WWE wrestlers in recent memory, CM Punk didn't get a sniff of the WrestleMania main event during his 9 years on the company's books between 2005 and 2014, and it wasn't for lack of trying. Even when it seemed like it would be his year in 2012, he got ousted for The Rock. While you can understand that, I imagine Punk couldn't. He had just busted his ass for an entire year, so no matter how much money the Great One going against John Cena was going to make, all he saw was that he didn't feature, and he thought he should have done. He was likely right. I also don't think it sat well with him that The Miz had managed to do this a year prior, and yet here, Punk was no closer to his dream. If you think about it like that, it is a little weird. Number 1, Ric Flair. Perhaps the only major honour missing from Ric Flair's glittering wrestling CV is participating in the go-home match at the Show of Shows. In defence of the Nature Boy though, the simple explanation for this oversight is the fact that he only spent 2 of his so-called peak years on the WWE books. The remainder of his career divided up between the AWA, the NWA and WCW. When he did finally head to the WWE in 1991, his first WrestleMania appearance saw him defend the world title against Randy Savage, but that wasn't in the main event spot. That honour went to Hogan vs. Sid. Of course it did. He did play his part in one of the event's most emotional moments in history, however, when Shawn Michaels retired him, and in many ways, that stole the show that night, and is what everyone remembers. So isn't that really the main event? No, it's not.
Hey guys, thanks for making it to the end of the video. Aren't you a star? Don't forget to subscribe below, and also the people who made this video, they're right here, so go and follow them and give them some love. If you want to see more content, there's probably some stuff flowing up above my head. Why not check it out? It could be fun. I'm not your dad.